E tenho uma alegria de poder apresentar logo na sequência uma autora, como eu falei, que ela tem best-seller. Eu adoro os nomes dos livros, além de tudo, além do conteúdo, né? Um chama de Umami Strategy and Leadership by Design. Ela trabalha na intersecção maravilhosa, e eu acho que todo profissional, toda profissional de RH deveria trabalhar, que é na intersecção entre design, liderança e comportamento humano. Assim, se a gente fosse fazer uma faculdade de RH, eu forçaria nessas 3 coisas. Ela tem uma pesquisa sobre como é que cria experiência cada vez mais significativa nesse mundo que é acelerado, automatizado e imprevisível. Então, queria pedir a nossa vinheta para a próxima palestrante. Aga, how are you? I think your mute is turned, of course.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine and very happy to have you here. I'm gonna take a picture and show it to you. You're beautiful in the screen, in the middle of this place, in the middle of São Paulo. So you are our final keynote and talking about this intersection of leadership, design, communication, and learning. I think it's going to be great to understand what you're seeing, what you're thinking, and how we can help this group of HR leaders to change the way they think and structure about development, leadership development, and learning. So the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here with you virtually. I've been to Brazil before and I absolutely love it. And I hope that there will be another opportunity to come and see. But today I'm calling you actually not from Poland. I'm Polish, but I'm traveling in the US right now. So I feel really happy that actually we are in the same time zone. So this is really cool. Let me start my presentation. And here I am. Awesome. So, of course, like Conrado said, I could talk a lot about leadership and design and experiences. But as this is a closing keynote, I would love to tackle upon something that I think comes through a lot of conferences that I visit and speak at these days, which is about uncertainty, which is about the fear of the future. So I would love to talk to you about dancing with uncertainty. And I'm laughing that if you don't have an AI in your title these days, in your presentation, you probably don't get the chance to speak. So I'm not saying that I'm not going to talk about LLMs, but large language models, but I kind of think that we got ourselves into talking so much about AI that sometimes humanity becomes second, which maybe it's not the best direction to do it. But let me get there. So there is a saying, Chinese saying, may you live in interesting times. And this is more like a curse. So like if they want to kind of make your life miserable, they tell you exactly that. And what last 5 years we've got, right? It started with COVID, which got us all stranded at homes and locked down. Something that is extremely live in my part of the country is the Russian aggression on Ukraine, which is ongoing and which has a lot of repercussions for us as Europe and, of course, for the rest of the world. Then we've got the American elections, which kind of redefined a lot of things going on in the world, which kind of led to the war of Gaza, led to the tariffs, led to something which is important for your world, so the changes in Venezuela, and finally something that touches all of us, which is the what's going on currently in Iran. And all these things are happening in the 5 years. We haven't had such intense 5 years, and COVID was earlier, of course, but like it kind of stretched through, or started earlier, I mean. And on top of everything, we've got the large language model revolution, which is a technological change that's happening. I'm kind of, I'm in my 50s, and I've seen a number of things happening in the world, and I must say that the speed of LLM revolution is something that we haven't experienced so far. And all of this makes us scared. First of all, is like, what's going on with the world? Like, what's happening? Like, how is this world going to look like? Am I going to be safe? Am I going to have a place to live? These are the basic questions. But we also have the LLM related threats, which is, will technology take my job? Will I lose control over what's true or what's not? Will I lose control over my knowledge? The knowledge used to be something of an asset, or actually a huge asset. And these days, hey, you can ask ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude anything, and you get the answer. So suddenly, a lot of people who are knowledge workers feel like their knowledge got reduced to nothing, really, right? And then we've got the problem, which is actually a problem. It's not only a thinking, but like my cognitive skills are diminishing, because if we give everything and kind of get all the answers from technology, we kind of get lazy with our way of thinking. So this is another thing that's happening there, and another fear that's eating at people. And the last one, which is probably not as visible yet, but like a lot of people start talking more and more about it, especially in the context of ChatGPT, is the manipulation and the potential influence of those tools, which are so pervasive and so powerful, can have on people. We already have the examples of suicides, people doing really, really dangerous stuff suggested by the LLMs. And we are at the early stages of it. So there is indeed a lot of things to be worried about, to be uncertain about, to be even fearful of. But what happens when we are fearful? Our brain starts working in a very specific way. First of all, we start looking for threats and finding them, even if there are none. So our brain is so preoccupied doom scrolling and looking for another bad news that we are basically projecting and finding them more and more, and also escalating them, meaning that we kind of blow out of proportion the things that we see. The second thing is that what happens is that if we are scared, if we are living in this chronic uncertainty, we become much more impulsive, and we basically stop thinking clear. So basically, we kind of react to situations rather than assess them and then act. And then finally, which is really interesting, we actually have difficulty learning new things. So if we're fearful, if we are uncertain, we tend to keep to status quo because we don't want the world to change. And it's not only because the uncertainty is kind of impeding our lives, but it's also influenced by the fact that when we are in this mental state, we kind of have a difficulty to absorb new knowledge. And in a way, I have a friend who some years ago traveled to India on a yoga retreat, and they were standing there by a beautiful lake where the trees were being mirrored in the water, and at some point the wind came and the wind moved the water, and suddenly the image that was so clear a second before became blurry, became exactly like this picture that you are seeing. And the teacher who was with her, and she told me how much it touched her. The teacher said, if our mind is clear, if our mind is quiet, we see everything clear. But if our mind is preoccupied or fearful, we start seeing everything in this blurry way. And this is exactly what's happening to a lot of us. We start seeing things in a blurry way rather than in a clear way. And yet, and again, like I said, like I'm in my 50s, so I've seen a number of technological revolutions before. The first one being the internet. Like I don't know what age you are out there, but the internet changed the world radically and dramatically and irreversibly. We wouldn't have been where we are if that revolution didn't happen. And I still remember the world without it. And, it changed. Yeah, I'm not maybe going into details of how it changed for me. The second revolution that I've seen is the mobile communication. So, like before you would have to be at home for your friends or family to call you. And now we have this tool that allows us to communicate anywhere. And actually the fact that I'm speaking to you right now is a consequence of that technology that allowed us to become really connected across the world with anyone at any time. And of course, like any technology, it has its drawbacks, but generally it's a brilliant thing. And then finally, a less brilliant thing, which is the social media. They started off really great, promising the world to become less lonely place. These days, I know that we've been discussing this, is basically a tool for manipulation and tool for getting kind of closing people into those little bubbles where they are getting the echo chambers, getting the same messages over and over and over again. So, we started with a beautiful technology, something that was like amazing and like changing the world in a way that was like really spectacular. Then we moved to something that was as spectacular, although like the impact was maybe slightly less visible, like more fluid in a way. Then we went to social media, which kind of started off well and then got kind of dark. And on top of it, we got the LLM technology, LLM revolution. And this one has two things. So we've seen what happened with social media, and we know that technology can be turned against us. The second thing is that we, and even the creators, they don't know how this technology really works. So like, of course, everybody understands that this is like a tool that semantically combines the words. This is probabilistic tool, deterministic tool. Like there's a lot of explanation, but why it works so well, nobody really knows. So we are in at the dawn of technology that we don't quite comprehend. And this is something that I've already said before, is this revolution, like the previous three ones that I was talking about, they rolled out in a world over time. So the internet was first like very little, universities, institutions, then it got a little bit bigger, and then suddenly the whole world was connected. With mobile phones was a similar situation, because the technology, the physical technology wasn't there. It took time for everyone to get from the brick phones to the phones with the buttons, then to the phones with the screens, and there we are. We are where we are today. Social media went faster, but again, it took time, and suddenly we have this thing that got created in. Started being officially released in 2022. We are 3 years later, and suddenly we have this thing that like really is taking our jobs and changing our way of thinking. How crazy is that, right? And this is again something that gets us really fearful. So basically, we again end up in a situation when all the fears coming from technology combined with the world situation, which is amplifying all of it, make us feel like, hey, the world is changing and I am not maybe having enough control over it. And I know I've heard from what Conrado was saying, Carolina was so nice to translate some of the main thoughts. Conrado was saying that you think that you are late. This is not true. I disagree with this, because I think that everyone is late or everyone is in the exactly same situation. I've been recently speaking to a number of conferences across the world, in the US, in Peru, in Poland, and everybody feels the same. Everybody feels like we are too late. But actually, it's not us being late, it's this technology being so fast that we have difficulties comprehending what is changing and how quickly it is changing, which makes us again fearful, right? And this is my personal opinion. I have a feeling that this fear comes from seeing things in a dichotomy, in seeing them in black and white, which is something that the Western culture has definitely embedded in its way of thinking very deeply. It comes from Christian tradition, which is about good and evil, heaven and hell. We basically have this way of saying, okay, this is either this or that. So you can think success or failure. If we too late, we will never succeed. So we will be failure. You can think they are great. Some companies are doing things great, so we suck, right? We are terrible. You can say they are more productive than us, so we are going to stay behind, or we are staying behind. Or you can say either it works or it doesn't make sense, right? So you can say, okay, some people are using AI as a technology that helps, and for us it doesn't work, so maybe it doesn't make sense, and kind of amplifies all those feelings, all those fearful feelings, these feelings of uncertainty. And in a way, it says, it makes us feel that tertium non datur, that there is no other option, that there's no third option that is possible in this world. And I think that it would be really great if we started thinking of the world more in the colors of gray. So, of course, there are places where AI is more advanced. There are companies that are using AI in a way that helps them change the way they work. I've been reading some statements of the CEOs, and for example, Mark Zuckerberg says Meta must be AI driven first, and basically everyone in the company will be assessed by AI driven impact. Sure. So, if you think about it, they are starting too, and they are in the front of this whole change. They don't have it figured out. They don't know how to deal with this whole AI thing that is happening around us. And actually, I've seen examples where, Duolingo is a good example, when they rushed into AI. They fired Duolingo is the language teaching company for those who may not be familiar with it. And they were teaching people languages online. They had teachers who were doing this, and at some point, very early on in the I think it was a year ago or so, they basically decided, okay, we are firing all the teachers, and we are doing all with AI agents who are going to teach people. And actually, what happened was that the satisfaction of their customers went down 80%. They lost, I think, 2/3 of their customer base. And basically, although they recalled the teachers, the lecturers back and said no, we are withdrawing with this. We kind of didn't say it right. We are teaching with people and AI is helping them. They are not able to rebuild their position yet, and maybe never again. So you can see that rushing into this AI thing. I'm not saying that you or we shouldn't try it, but it needs some way of thinking. It needs some strategic thinking. I've been working with a number of banks, and of course, they also all have an agenda of using LLMs, and at the same time, they have all those restrictions which don't allow them to use their LLMs as much as they would like to. And we had this discussion. I said, how about you just, instead of trying to change everything and try to embed technology anywhere, how about you just try to apply these tools to get you to understand what your customers are saying, right? Or what your employees are saying. You can get a better insight into what's going on with your company, and maybe instead of trying to use the technology to solve the problems, get to understand the problems and prioritize them according to how important they are. Technology, especially LLMs, is great at it. Actually, if you think about it, we are laughing. There are like two stories about how to talk about LLMs. And one is that this is like an extremely eager junior who came to or intern who came to your company, and they can do a hell lot of work. They can do so much work you would never be able to do it, but they have no clue of how to apply it. And actually, if you think about it, this is true. Like, you know, like you get the technology to collect the huge amount of data and analyze the huge amount of data for you. But if you don't ask the right questions, you will get, you know, you're not going to get answers that are interesting or valuable or help you go forward. There's this amazing book that I really love, and I've read it a number of times. It's a book by Seth Godin, which is called The Linchpin. And I think that that this is something that I see happening with people thinking about how to deal with LLMs. And actually, and with technology, the changing technology that we've got right now. So there are like two dimensions here. One is passive or active, and the other is attached or discern. Discern is like keeping distance. So like, you know, you are active, but you are not overly emotionally attached to the given technology or situation or something like this. So what Seth says is that if you are passive and discerned, so like you don't want to do much work and you are at the same time keeping your distance, you are a bureaucrat. So there will be a lot of companies and there will be a lot of people in organizations that will try to say, no, let's leave this technology. Let's not do anything about it. We shouldn't, like, let's wait for others to deal with it and then we will see how it works. And they will be finding excuses and reasons not to use the technology. And to be perfectly honest, I think that if you're not using this technology, you are going to be going backwards. So this is one way. The second is when you're passive, so you're still not wanting to do anything, but you're emotionally attached. You become a whiner. You say like, oh my God, this technology is changing my world and I don't know what to do with it. And if someone told me, if someone helped me, if someone gave me an example, I would be so much better. But, you know, I need somebody to help me with this situation. I see so many companies being whiners these days. They say like, okay, we are in this situation, but how can we deal with it if we have no patterns, no ways of acting, no ways of thinking? Nobody has those ways of thinking. We are creating them right now, and it depends on us how they are going to be, whether they are going to be making people miserable or they are going to making people feel elevated. This is on us. This is the change that we can actually influence. Then you have a third mindset, which is active. So we are going into this action-oriented mindset and also attached. And these people are fundamentalists. And this is something that I see it with designers a lot. I as a designer, I of course, work a lot with designers. I see it with leaders a lot. I see it with HR experts a lot as well. So basically, they say my way or highway, right? So basically, either we do it my way because I have an insight of sorts, or I am just not going to do it at all. And actually, this mindset makes a lot of people kind of not want to collaborate with you. So if you think about it through the lens of LLMs, there's like a lot of people saying like AI first, AI driven, AI, you know, whatnot. There's like a number of these kind of agendas. And some people say like, yeah, wait, how about we kind of have a discussion about this? And if you are just in this mindset, it's very difficult to actually get everybody on board. And finally, the mindset that Seth is beautifully describing in this book that I mentioned, which is active, but keeping a distance. So like, okay, let's keep on changing things, but let's kind of have a reflection on it. Let's see how these things are helping or hurting us. Let's kind of evaluate, let's do experiments, let's prototype all these things. with leadership, with HR, with redefining the roles, with design, with creating products, with using technology to replace humans in any capability. And this is what Seth calls a linchpin. And I think there was always space for linchpins in the world, but I think that in the current situation, with the speed that we are experiencing, being a linchpin is something that has the biggest value in the company. And I think that if you are looking for collaborators, if you are looking for people who are going to help you with the change, it's amazing to look for those linchpins in your organizations, people who want to drive change, but at the same time who are able to say like, hey, wait, let's think for a second here and let's see whether we are going the right direction. What should we change to actually get a better result? And also what is really important, like it's absolutely crucial, and that was never as crucial before as it is right now, is to have a strategy of how you want to be, what kind of company you want to be, what kind of leaders do you want to have in your company, what kind of culture you want to have. And then with those linchpins, move in that direction. Kind of, if you don't have this direction, this change will push you back and forth, and it will make you go in directions that maybe you would never want to go. And, like the same, like I'm talking about companies, but the same is happening right now in the whole world. We have a huge redefinition of how the world is going to look like. And as much you as Brazilians, as much us as Poles, we've been given a political system that had been working for the last 80 years after the Second World War. And, it's, first of all, it doesn't work. It's not effective in any way. And also there's like more countries that want to have a say about what's going on in the world. Like, like Brazil wants to do this, South Africa wants to do it. I've been to Peru this year, I've been to Kenya this year, I'm traveling a lot. And like I see everyone in these countries saying like, hey, we are done being led by others. We want to be deciding about what's important for us. And this comes with this professional redefinition, which basically means that every job, probably not every, but a lot of jobs are going to change. And people need to get to the point to understand how these jobs are going to look like. I'm looking for my profession, which is a designer and a leadership trainer. Leaders are lost. They say like, okay, like how am I going to be an AI agent leader? Like, am I going to lead or manage technology rather than people? Or like, am I managing people who are managing technology? How is it going to work? Like, there's like a lot of questions like this. But they also say, okay, like if I have this technology, I've been, for example, working with the chairman of Polish Parliament, and he told me, hey, can you train all my directors in the basic of LLMs, because their employees are using, and the politicians are using LLMs to create new legislation, to write memos, and so on and so forth. And if they don't understand that technology, who's going to be responsible for the results? Not technology, of course, right? Like the people who created this and the people who are supposed to assess it and understand whether this is good or bad. So this is the leadership problem. Professionally, with designers, we kind of have this situation, which is also relevant for developers, for example, that, okay, maybe seniors are needed because they know how to ask the right questions, and they know how to have a logical train of thought to create something, but we don't need juniors. But if we don't have juniors, because technology replaces juniors, right? AIs, LLMs can replace them. But if we don't have juniors, how are we going to have seniors in a few years' time? So basically, it requires this whole change from the HR perspective and the professional perspective to understand how are we creating these professional models and paths of development for people to actually be able to perform their jobs in the best possible way. And again, I am like, there is this fear. Like, I think there was the CEO of Microsoft who said that like in a year or year and a half, 50% of jobs will be gone. Of course, this is not true, but I would say that within a year or 2 years or 5 years, probably 80% of the jobs will be redefined. And this is a good thing. This is something that pushes us to learn. And of course, I would like to come back to what I said at the beginning, is that if we are in a fearful state, our brain is not capable of learning things. So we get like really scared. It's like, oh my God, like I cannot really grasp everything that's happening. And yes, this is the role for HR departments, to help people redefine their professional paths, their professions, their way of working, but not by excluding those new tools, but incorporating them in the most efficient way. And I know that Conrado there was one of the questions, like, who leads this transformation? And like I said, there are no answers yet, which is bad news, but this is awesome news as well. Because who leads the transformation? You lead it. You define these things. And you can be an example for other companies, for other departments, for other people, for other countries, of how these things can be done in a way that's good, that's valuable, that makes progress without killing innovation, without killing spirit of people, without making people miserable. I know that you've been talking a lot about productivity. And as I read what Carolina was translating for me, I was thinking about the statement that a friend of mine told me. And she said, like, like I want my AI to do the shopping and laundry for me so I can do my art, and not make it do my art for me so I can do laundering and shopping. So I think that this is something that we can think also in terms of professional development, that productivity is about getting the mundane things out of the way so people can be more innovative, they can do important stuff, they can do beautiful stuff. Maybe this is the space where we can finally get the pragmatics and the basic out of the way and start creating things with a new mindset, with a mindset of creating beautiful experiences rather than just making the things work in a reasonable way. And I would love to say that, like, we are fearful in these times, but fear is a liar. Fear makes us see things which are not there. Fear is making us be holding on into the status quo. And this is not the moment to do this. If you hold to the status quo, it's gonna be really diminishing for you, for your company, for your employees, and it just makes you smaller. So here's the question, of course, like how to change it, what is the key, what is the solution to all of this? And of course, I am not saying that I have an answer, but I have some glimpse of an answer which I would love to share with you. And I know that you love poetry, so I was thinking that this is probably the most beautiful way to finish. So I would love to share a statement with you, which is like about curiosity, and a poem that talks about why curiosity is, rather than judgment, is important. When things don't go your way, when you don't get what you want, when someone does it better than you, be curious, not judgmental. When you hear no instead of yes, when it lasts too long, when you are listening to a story with an obvious ending, be curious, not judgmental. When the same thing keeps repeating itself, when someone says something, anything at all, when your mind gets lost in negative thoughts, be curious, not judgmental. When you feel heavy, like the air has turned against you, when the world outside feels sharp and unkind, when you no longer know where to turn, be curious, not judgmental. When the road feels like it ends, when the money runs dry, when the words run out, be curious, not judgmental. Thank you.
I can't agree more that a poem is an excellent way to finish a talk. Well, thank you a lot. And I have some questions here, and should anyone on the chat online have any questions, please shoot us. But the thing is, we are facing here in Brazil a problem that I think is global, which is it's hard to have the leaders participating with real presence in a development program. And even when they are there in the training, it's hard for make them find time to practice, to learn, to change. So a lot of people here, they deal with leadership development programs, and they are having a hard time finding what to do in order to create this space of growing and development for their teams. So is there any hint, anything that you're seeing around that would help us designing better leadership development programs?
Yes, absolutely. So actually, like this is something that I work with leaders, and I work with, I'm sorry, I'm just hearing myself in a loop, probably from the speakers, right?
No. We're just hearing
Okay.
just hearing your voice.
All right. Okay. Okay. So basically, when I'm working with my program, which is based on the book Leadership by Design, which is like a 12-week program, leadership development program, I do two things. I get every leader to commit to the time that it's gonna take to make this transformation happen. So if I have a leader who tells me, I don't have the time for it, I say, okay, like this is not your time then. Like you're not going to participate in this program. And then the second thing is that I get those leaders to get a permission from their leaders, be the CEO of the company, to commit that this program takes over anything else. So like there's nothing more important than this particular program. And they actually have to sign a contract. And they come with this contract, and they can enter my program only when this contract is being signed. And then it gives me an argument that when we are going through the program and someone tells me like, Aga, I have this important meeting, I have this call and so on, I just pull this contract like, hey, that was our agreement. And this is not like, this is the most important thing. And of course, it happens sometimes that somebody has to do something because like something popped up and like there's no other way. But otherwise, I really get people being absolutely committed to the program. The other thing that I do, because I don't know how you run your leadership programs, but I've seen a lot of leadership programs which are more a series of workshops. So like you come for a day, you do something, maybe you get a little bit of homework, and then like you come a month later and you have another workshop. This is at least what I've seen and what I experienced in Poland. And this doesn't make people prioritize it because they don't feel that they are involved and engaged with that program enough. So when I run my programs, this is like a 3-month program. And basically we start with a offsite when people get to know each other and they are working together. And when they are committed to working together, when they are sharing their experiences and their pains and their struggles together, the commitment is so much bigger because they are on the same journey. And that's really amazing for me because like people enter and they are often very skeptical. Like they say like, oh my God, like what are you making us do? Like, like I don't want to do these things. I don't have time for it. Like, although they already committed, or they say like, okay, like, is it really for me? And so on. And at the end, when we arrive at the last workshop, they see the change that happened in them. And this is actually what also makes those programs work, allows for commitment, and the third thing actually gives them the fame in the organization that makes other people join. And this is how you can go through a number of groups of leaders, even those who are like a little bit more skeptical at the beginning. That's my recipe. I'm sure that there are more, but mine works for me.
That's great. A final question. This is a festival on learning culture, and a huge part of learning culture is workplace learning, the learning that is going to happen when we are not there. So how we can invite the leader to be a part of the workplace learning are their teams, so that they understand that they have a huge part of creating environments that can promote learning.
This is another thing that I've seen a number of times, and there's a simple answer. Again, simple but not trivial, I think.
Great.
So if you think about how work is organized, okay, I'll start from a different perspective. I have a friend who is a retired high-ranking officer of Norwegian Marine Forces. And he noticed that when you are in the army, you spend 95% of your time exercising and 5% on action, more or less, right? Now, when you look at the company, we spend 100% or like 99% time on action, so actually being productive, doing things, making things work, creating new products, whatnot. And we are spending maybe 1%, maybe 2% of our time on practicing what we are supposed to do. And of course, this is like embedded in our mindset. Like, I should be doing things and not learning about things. So the whole thing is to think of how to bring this culture, like how to change that mindset. And that's why I said this is simple but not trivial. Like how can you convince your teams to actually spend more time training and learning things? And one thing that I've seen, and it worked for a number of teams I've been working with, that I have two things. One was, and that was from the times when I used to work at Google, we had the 20% projects, which was one day to do other projects than the ones that we were like doing professionally as part of our job. And it was an amazing way of learning new things because, I would end up doing some applications for North Africa or fixing something for some NGO and so on. So suddenly you end up doing things that are not directly related and they awaken your curiosity. So this is one way of thinking about it. And I think that with if the companies focus on productivity only, so doing things faster and more of them, that's kind of not gonna work. But if you think, so if we have the tools that help us with productivity, therefore we can give time for education and learning and self-development, this is something that that might actually work. So, and I'm thinking that I have three. So one is the 20% project. The second thing, and this comes from my Philips times, Philips research used to have something which was called the CSR conference, which was like a conference happening once in a year, where people were showing the most innovative solutions that they created throughout that year. So basically, it was like a trade show with teams showing off with their creations. And of course, a lot of teams wanted to be there, so there was a limit, and not everybody would feature what they created. And it was making people learn and create and be innovative and do new things. And the first thing, which is probably the simplest, to implement was that, again, there was time given for it. And it was really time giving in the sense there's no meetings, no obligations, nothing that can happen these days. It was usually on Fridays in this particular company that I'm thinking of. And basically people were asked to prepare a 2 to 3 hour little training on anything for their team. And it was a rotating thing. So one team member would prepare it for the others. And it could be a cooking course. It could be, woodwork. It could be whatever. And there was a little budget for it. And then basically suddenly people learned that they can actually do fun stuff. But, actually majority were professional things. So how about we learn how to negotiate, how to be more creative, how to... And you can put anything that the training says. But the thing was, it wasn't coming from the company. It was coming from the interest of the team. And basically being given, being created by them. So therefore, it was making, again, the commitment much stronger from the people within the team. Because, what I've noticed with a lot of trainings in a lot of companies is that a department like the training and development department decides what people should want to learn. And it's kind of a little bit like a school with a menu. Like you choose from the things that are given to you. And sometimes maybe these are not necessarily the things that this particular little entity, being a team, needs or wants. And if you give them the freedom and the power to actually start creating their own things, actually the learning starts there.
Aga, thank you a lot, not only for your knowledge, but for your passion on the field. It's clear that you have a great time doing what you do. So such an energy. So thank you a lot. Hopefully you'll be here in Brazil next time.
Hopefully, I would love that. Thank you so much for having me. And have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you. Congrats.
Thank you. Bye.